Hey, you guys, I just made a video where I was talking about how I got a sharp jolt of pain underneath my tongue on my right side whenever I chew apples on the left side. I think I figured out what's causing this. I believe that I have a yeast infection of my lingual nerve. The lingual nerve goes underneath the tongue, and it's always at that same spot. It's right next to a blood vessel underneath my tongue. I get a sharp jolt of pain when I'm chewing. If you'll notice in the picture here, you can see the lingual nerve originates up in the jaw joint area. My jaw joints are kind of loose and wobbly because the yeast has eaten away at the bone there. I have, you might say, very, very beginning stages of osteoporosis, but it's not really I think they call it osteopenia. Brent told me that's what I've got. He said as long as I eat a balanced diet and I keep taking my Seroquel, that I'll be okay. But the point is, the yeast infection, which I've had for most of my life, has caused my jaw joints to be kind of misaligned. And I think that when I eat apples, that causes me to chew harder and put more pressure on the joints. And when my lingual nerve is inflamed because of yeast infection, then I get a jolt when I'm chewing, especially with apples, because you got to chew more with apples, I guess. I don't know. I get a jolt. If I chew apples on my left side, it somehow causes the movement on the jaw joint on the right side to touch that probably a swollen lingual nerve, and then I get a jolt of pain right underneath my tongue. And this past month, because there has been so much yeast that I've been inhaling, I do believe that I have an infection of my lingual nerve and it's swollen. And so when I'm chewing apples on the left side of my face, it moves the jaw joint on the right side in a manner that touches that nerve at an area where it's raw and swollen. And there's electricity in the body. That's what the whole science of acupuncture is about. So apparently, when that nerve is swollen, and I touch that when I chew apples, and I touch the nerve somehow, it somehow touches the nerve. I get a jolt, electric jolt of pain right down into my sublingual area, right underneath the tongue. It's always the same spot. If I chew apples on the right side, it doesn't happen. It only happens when I chew apples on the left side. So apparently the cause is a yeast infection with a swollen lingual nerve that is irritated when I chew a certain way. It somehow hits that nerve and causes a jolt of pain underneath my tongue. So that's what's going on. It's not a dental problem. It is a nerve problem. I've got nerve damage. You might say it's probably caused by the yeast. So what is the cure? Drink a lot of water. I'm probably not drinking enough water. That'll help my body to flush out the yeast, and that'll help cure the infection of the lingual nerve. And if I'm really worried about it, just don't eat apples on the left side. Chew on, like I had an apple today on my right side, no problems. So apparently, because I have a kind of a wobbly TMJ issue, because my jaw joint is a little bit wobbly because of bone loss there, and so it's not a serious problem, and it kind of resolves itself. It comes and goes depending on how severe of a yeast infection I have in the nerve tissue in my face and my head. So that's what's going on, folks. It's not a dental problem. One of my followers who means well, and she sounds like she might be a nurse or something, suggested I should see the dentist, but I know this is not a dental problem. This is a nerve problem. And I think I figured it out. I did a little research. I've been kind of ignoring it because it only happens when I eat apples, and only when I eat apples on the left side. So if I'm really worried about it, I'll just eat apples on the right side like I did today, no problem. But I was just curious. I never really thought too much about it. And Brent's telling me, brain to brain, he says, you're a genius. He says, that's what I think is going on. He's a doctor. He's a UCLA grad, a medical school grad. So he's saying, Gail, I think you got it. I just said, so I was telling Brent, I said, why does it feel like a jolt of electricity going down? Well, Brent says, well, it's a nerve. So the nerve is swollen. And as you can see, it's a pretty large sized nerve. So if it's swollen and I'm hitting it wrong, like because my jaw joints are not really exactly where they should be. So it's nothing to sweat over. I mean, if it's a really big problem, they could do surgery, but I think they can do surgery on that nerve using satellite technology. So Brent might. I never really complained about it. So Brent might get the doctors at Church of Gail to work on that nerve and see if they can get it, and maybe work on that. To be honest with you, I think it's caused by yeast. So I just need to just drink a lot of water, help my body. It's a yeast infection to the lingual nerve. Just need to drink a lot of water, help my body get the yeast out of my system, and keep the yeast under control by taking Seroquel. So that's how I take care of it. That's it, folks. Jesus does not want me to go to the dentist. The last dentist I had he was murdered and replaced with a clone. And when I went to see that dentist, he lied and said that I had a huge cavity in the root of my left molar. And he showed me a fake x-ray, and he said I needed an implant. And Jesus flattened the tire of my car. He says, you will not go to that dentist, Gail. He says, you just have a mild yeast infection in the root of that tooth. And he said, just, don't sweat over it. And probably the same thing here with this lingual nerve. I probably have a mild yeast infection in the lingual nerve, and it comes and goes depending on how bad the yeast infection is. It's nothing to lose any sleep over. Like, it doesn't affect my sleep. And if I don't eat apples, I'll be fine. But I love eating my apples. I'm not going to give up my apples to pacify this nerve. So that's what it is, folks. That's what it is. It's the lingual nerve. It's an infected nerve. It's infected with yeast. And I figured out the problem. I never really thought about it too much, but usually when I put my mind to figuring out what's going on with my body, I usually hit the nail right on the head. I'm really smart. I'm really, really smart. So, in fact, my acupuncture doctor, she said, you should be an acupuncture doctor. She says, you are really good. Because I went to visit her, and I was telling her that I think I have liver issues. And she said, you are exactly right. At that time, I did have liver issues. The yeast infection had caused my liver to be really inflamed, and I got really sick. So I told her, I think if I address my liver and strengthen my liver, it will really help. And she said, I agree with you. And I did that, and it did help. But anyways, that's all yeast. My biggest problem is yeast. And Jesus, the divine physician, knows that most of my health problems are yeast, about 95% of them. So Jesus was an absolute genius to create Seroquel for me. And he said he did. But it's not just for me, folks. So that's what it is, folks. I got a swollen lingual nerve, and it's really acting up this month because Lori's been dropping more bombs over my head. That's what's going on. I just need to drink a lot of water, and if it really bothers me, surgery is not really going to help. Not if it's caused by an infection. Yeah, it's nothing to sweat over. I just need to live with it and maybe drink more water and make sure I take my Seroquel.